not shed any emotions and to bottle this in and to provide the household and to work nonstop to put food on the table.
Obstacle, this giant thing in front of them. Imagine it as a big boulder blocking a doorway. And the doorway is the only freaking way you could get out of this room you're in. My ducks just had babies. They had a bunch of little baby chicks running around, and I got a new puppy, and like, I'm just going to go home and be with my family. That is one hell of a worthy goal. All right. Well, here we are, 1% Podcast, episode 2. Shane and Vin going at it. So what we were talking about was, and a lot of people have probably already heard this. I believe there's a book out called The Obstacle is the Way. But a lot of people don't know that that's actually a very, very old saying in Stoicism. It is Marcus Aurelius that's on record for saying something to the effect of, the obstacle is the way you have to go. Whenever there's hardship and difficulty in your life, that is the direction you need to move it. And a lot of the reason that people get stuck and they think they need the medications and that they have lifelong problems and that, they need to self-abuse with alcohol or drugs or porn. Porn's a big one, right? And they don't even talk about that. That stuff's free. So that's another issue we can get into. But people start self-medicating because they're aware that the obstacle, this giant thing in front of them, imagine it as a big boulder blocking a doorway. And the doorway is the only freaking way you could get out of this room you're in. And so you have two choices. You have to claw, you have to scratch, you have to figure out how to get that boulder worn down, move it. There's going to be a lot of energy, effort, and hardship in getting that boulder out of the way. However, if you clear that boulder, your path is finally open to you. You finally have the abilities and the capabilities to step into that next best version of you. The issue that comes up is people don't want to go through the obstacle. They don't want to face the hardship that comes with it. They'd rather ignore it. And then what winds up happening is so many other things that they are actually hyper aware of, but they won't acknowledge. And so this is what creates the stuckness, is they're aware that by not choosing to go into the difficulty, by not embracing the obstacle, they can never go through the way. They can never go through the path. And why that's so disappointing and disheartening is because they know that they're settling to be less than they're capable of. They know that they're settling because they've been met with a challenge they don't want to fight back with. They've been hitting this wall now that they actually have come to almost the conclusion that they're just going to stay there because it's too painful to try and break down the boulder. So they'd rather just sit in the room. And that's not a good feeling, no matter what, to know that you've given up and feel defeated because you don't believe you have the capability or you don't want to put in the effort. It's going to be very disheartening, and it's going to keep you stuck, and it's going to keep you in this loop of trying to find dopamine or pleasure in all these other ways, when the biggest rush of dopamine you could ever achieve is going through the hardship and coming out on the other side, the person you're meant to be.
And I think that really applies to this 1% community as well. And the people that we talk to all the time is that when they're faced with difficult decisions or this boulder, they're not afraid to learn how to smash it or go around it or go over it, is better saying. I feel that being pinned in that corner and, not attacking the issues at hand, you're just going to stay the same. You're not growing yourself. You're not evolving. You're not becoming the person that you were really meant to be. So I love that. I think it's fantastic. For the people that are struggling to face that boulder, what advice would you give them, that they see something that they're scared? And that's, really what it comes down to. They're scared of facing their fears. They're afraid of success. They're afraid of what's, on the other side of that boulder. So, and if I go this direction or this direction, I'm used to it. It's easy street. I'm comfortable with it.
Right.
So what advice would you give them to say, conquer that?
It's easy to be afraid. Everybody's afraid, right? Fear is normal. It's an inherent part of life. I mean, even some of the most successful people in this world right now still operate out of a level of fear of like, what if I lose it all tomorrow? I've heard some great people, even like Ed Milet, He was on an interview and he was talking about that. I mean, guy's very wealthy, extremely successful. And he said, to some degree, there's still a thought in me that I might lose it all. But I've come to understand that successful people have that because it's an obvious possibility, right? There's nothing that's going to say that you or I or anyone will continue to be successful and thriving in this world. We're just banking on the fact that we built it up enough that it won't come crashing down instantly. And if it does start coming to crash down, we'll notice, because realistically, it's a process. It usually doesn't just come out straight from under us at any given point. So I think embracing the fact that your fear is going to be there no matter what, and learning to dance with it. One of the greatest things I heard in my lifetime was that getting the thing you want most in life is a dance with your own fears. It's a dance with your own outcomes that you want. And we don't tend to understand or give ourselves enough grace. Some days, like if we go back to that analogy with the boulder, like some days you're going to be chipping away at it. And then some days you might want to lay in the corner and be like, this is hopeless. I've been chipping away at this thing for 473 days. And when that day comes that you're going to go hurtle up in the corner, which it ultimately does, you just have to remember that's also normal and embrace that as a part of the process. Because people want the outcome without the process, but the process is what makes the journey all worthwhile. Like, you'll get an immense amount of satisfaction once you break down the boulder, because you know how long it took you to break down that damn boulder. However, if the boulder just magically like lifted out of your way and flung itself into a field and you were able to walk, there's not really going to be any appreciation for that, right? Because you weren't in that room long and it wasn't that hard, and you're not going to get any type of fulfillment out of overcoming that adversity. So understanding that there's fulfillment in our problems, like the problem is your potential to grow. Your problem is your opportunity to become a new next best version of you. And the last thing that I have to say on it is understanding what courage is, right? Courage isn't acting because there's no fear. Like, it's very easy to be courageous if you're not afraid. It's very easy to be courageous when life is good and things are easy. Courage is acting despite fear. Like, you have the fear, but you do the thing anyway. Like our soldiers, right? I don't think that any of them are out there and they're just like, this is great, I want to get shot at. I can't imagine anyone's out there. And if they are, they should have failed their mental exam. But the reality is that guy is out there despite his fear. A bullet goes whizzing past his head. He's not just like, I'm done. He's not just putting down the gun and walking away. He's like, oh, that was a bullet, I'm gone, I'm out. It's like, no. He knows that he's got to do something because he's now in this situation, and he's probably got his friends next to him, and he wants to make sure they're okay, just like he wants to make sure he's okay. And then there might be another level added in where he might have a wife at home and a kid at home. So now he's got his buddy to his left and his right. He's got his wife and his kid he's thinking about. He's got his parents he wants to go see again. That bullet whizzed past his head. He's not going to quit, but he's going to be careful. He's going to do it anyway, because that's what somebody who has true courage does.
Now, I'm generally curious. The dance of fear, is this a tango? Is this like a waltz dance? I'm curious on what kind of dance the fear dance is.
I would say it's a waltz, because if you think about it, what is that?
So that's the worst dance ever.
It is. But here's the thing, right? One person leads the waltz. So now the question is, do you want to be, and if we're using like the terminology of who leads and who doesn't, do you want to be the masculine or the feminine? Because the masculine is going to lead the waltz and the feminine will follow. So the masculine and the feminine, you get to choose which one you want to be. Understand the opposite will be your fear.
It's a great way of putting it as well. And I can definitely contest with, fear. It's every day. But it's containing it, and it's, managing it properly. And in my opinion, like, failure is the best way for self-growth. It's okay. Do I want to, boxing is the best way of putting it. I did boxing when I was younger, and it's like, okay, well, I don't want to get uppercut again. So what do I have to do to not get hit in the face or in the chin, or
Right.
try not to get knocked out? So learning by failures and managing that will overcome fear because you're being smarter. Luck favors the prepared mind. Now, I wanted to talk about also, because this is kind of going towards masculinity, what it's like to be a man in today's society. And I know, we were talking about this before. There's unconditional love for women and for kids and for animals, essentially. And for a man, at least for what we were taught, was to not shed any emotions and to bottle this in and to provide the household and to work nonstop to put food on the table. In your eyes, what is a man supposed to do in today's society?
I think the answer could be very simple. I mean, it has a lot of complexities, but I think the most simple answer of what a man should do is be a high value man, be a good man, be a man that has the capacity for chaos, but doesn't use it anyway. Because a man who's truly unlocked his masculine and who lives a value aligned life has duty to society. He has a duty to be caring. He has a duty to be protective. He has a duty to be serving. I think a man at his highest capacity is actually someone who serves, loves, and protects. And I don't think there's anything or anyone that could change, honestly, that definition of what a man is. So I've seen it. I feel like I like to live it. I mean, I think that's what I do. I'm sure you do that. And I know that I'm trying to also set a standard to, for my kid, so that she knows that as she gets older and, when she's out there dating, that she understands like what a good man is supposed to be and what a high value man is supposed to be and how he should treat not only himself, but her and others. Because the measure of a man is in how he can make others feel about themselves while simultaneously keeping a good high value image of himself.
I was listening to David Meltzer earlier, and he talks about, self-love. And that's essentially that as long as you know what you're doing is right, and, and what God would agree with, that's all you can hope for. In today's society, a lot of people care and justify what people think about you, and it weighs too much on themselves. If we can just flip a switch and get back to, am I a good person? Do I give back? Am I doing the best thing that I can do? Even if you still have fear, I think that's connects so much to me personally that I try to live my life to try to be a better person and to try to be the best I can be for myself and for my family and for my loved ones and for the people that actually matter. That it really doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I know that I'm doing a good person. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I make mistakes? Every single day. But I do my best and to reflect on that situation and try to be a better person and try to be, 1% into that community for my mindset, for my soul, for my family, for in general.
And then I think that's a really important message for people to hear. What would you say is the biggest thing that you hold near to your heart when it comes to what you believe makes you the best version of yourself?
So I feel that this is an evolving question. If you would have asked me this in my 20s, it would have been a lot different of an answer. And if you would have asked me this in my 30s, it would have been the same. But I think people have different motivations and drives and goals and ambitions that try to thrive for them to be the best person that they can be. Mine is my family. I have a 6-month pregnant wife. She's my best friend. I've been with her for be 13 years in January. I have a 2-year-old son, and every day, that I wake up, I want to be the best version of myself for them. And it's really it's amazing when you have something like that really strives for you to want to be better. However, when I say that's an evolving answer, in my 30s, it was all financial and success driven. So when you have that mentality, and when you're, even when I was still together with my wife at that point, even in my 30s, I wanted to be the best businessman. I wanted to make the most money, because that's what I thought was going to make me happy, was having these nice things and the stature and people liking me. And then as you get older and wiser, you realize that crap doesn't matter. It's, am I doing the best thing for my family? And so my personal motivation and drive is 100% with my family. And I will continue to be the best version of myself for them. What about you?
Yeah, I would say it's that exact same way for me too, because realistically, the things that you value is supposed to change, right? So when I have a client come to me, usually one of the things that we do for them is I have them make a personal and professional mission, vision, and value statements, because their business, it's important that they have that, but then it's also important that they have a understanding of who are you becoming as a person, right? What are your values? What's your vision? What is your mission for yourself, your own evolution? And I also tell them that it should be edited. It should be edited as frequent or infrequent as it needs to be.
Yep.
But the reality is that there's going to be things that come up in your life that will change what you put emphasis on, as it rightly should. It's a hierarchy of life, right? I mean, there's a human needs hierarchy where everybody has certain things at different levels they need to reach. Like, we're able to sit on here and form a podcast because we're not trying to figure out where are we going to live, how are we going to pay our bills this month, do I have enough food, do I have enough water? So we could go to that next level where we could do other things, where somebody who's focused on all those things doesn't give a shit about making a podcast. They probably don't even listen to a podcast. And so it's important to recognize that everybody has their own seasons in life. And I've went through many different seasons. I think when I was younger and I got bullied, I just wanted to be somebody that somebody wanted to, spend time with, right? So my biggest value was on becoming someone who could have friends. And then when I was like 19, I finally got my first girlfriend. So now another value was trying to figure out how to, either keep this girl or get better girls, because I never had a girl before that. So I didn't know what I was doing there. And then when I was in my 20s, it was on having fun and trying to figure myself out. That was the biggest value, was just like, I'm just going to do me. And in my late 20s was when I started getting more business minded. And I was like, I don't want to keep working for people, more so because I didn't get along with any of my bosses, because I think that I thought I knew more than them. But the reality is I mostly did. So it wound up being that I had to leave. And then I guess the last part is that now here I am in my 30s, and I had a kid who was an accident, right? And I didn't really want a kid. I just wanted to travel the world and have a lot of fun and do it with my girl, and not worry about having this thing at home, right? Or having any other ultimate responsibilities. Like, I just wanted to make money, have fun, travel, and like live my 30s in my best way possible. And by the time I was 30, I found out, my girl was pregnant. And then I was about 31 and the kid came out, and then I'm sitting there and I'm like, I still don't really value this, because I had a hard time. Funny enough, it's hard to value something you don't accept. I had a hard time accepting that I wasn't going to get to do the things that I created expectations that I was supposed to do with my life, right? Because in my mind, in my life, I was saying, you know, build a business, travel the world, get married, have a lot of fun with my wife, get a house, and then have a kid. And that should have been somewhere around like mid 30s, like 35, have our first kid or so, whatever. So fast forward, rewind, 30 years old, still no house, still not married, still figuring out the business, pregnant with a kid. And so, you know, they say this, if you want to make God laugh, tell him you have a plan. And that definitely rung true for my life, because I had to learn very quickly how to reduce or shift my expectations, because they were all shattered in a moment where I found out my girl was going to have a kid. Mm-hmm. And so that was very hard for me to accept, honestly. I struggled with it for a few months. And looking back on my life, you know, if I could go back and change it, I totally would, because it took away from me being able to really enjoy some moments in the pregnancy and, you know, even a few moments after she was born, because I was still struggling with that expectation I wasn't able to shift. However, and I know it seems like we deviated, but I'm bringing it full circle here, is that however, once my daughter came out and I started really stepping into this role as a man, which, to be honest, I wound up having to look deep inside and figuring out I was just really freaking afraid. I was really afraid that I wasn't going to be able to take care of them, because my girl's now a stay-at-home mom. You know, my kid is at home. I'm the full supportive, you know, breadwinner, so to speak, and I do everything I can to try to give them the best life possible. But that's still scary, because it's a lot of responsibility on a man. And a man who didn't feel ready to give that responsibility, it challenged me double, because I didn't feel set in my business. I mean, to some degree, I still don't, right? So it was something I had to really figure out. And then my daughter became my biggest value prop. My daughter became the reason that I wanted to actually become even more successful than I thought I could be. My daughter became the whole reason, like, I believe I need to model myself as this amazing man, because I want her to find an amazing man one day. And I want her to not settle for some freaking douche. And I want her to see what a beautiful relationship could be like with, you know, by me modeling that with her mother. And there's just so many things that it took me out of myself, and it made me focus on somebody else or something else being way more important than me. And there were things that were more important. I had a mission where I wanted to impact 1 billion lives before I had a kid. And I wasn't just trying to do that in a self-serving way. I created that mission because of the fact that I know what it's like to suffer, and I know how hard life can be, and I want to help other people alleviate pain. But then I started thinking, after I had the kid, that even if I don't impact 1 billion lives, as long as I impact at least one life, and I'm sure everybody could guess which life I'm talking about, my life has immense meaning. So that was a very big transition of how my values shifted, you know, throughout my last 10 or so years, 20 years.
And to be honest, it's I'm sure you can agree with me. It's the best thing that's ever happened to you. I mean, when you make that transition from selfishness, because, you know, and mine was pretty much the same before I had kids. It was, I get to watch footballs, you know, commercial-free football on Red Zone for 7 hours on Sundays, and, you know, wake up at, you know, 9-10 o'clock and do whatever I wanted to do. I would not change that for the world. I mean, my son and my, you know, unborn daughter, they're everything to me. And it's crazy that you can have this unconditional love for kids, and it really is true. But I want to go back to, you know, if you being smarter than your superiors. You know, that always goes that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I think that's what we love about this community that we're trying to build is this 1%ers. It's going to be everybody here that are like-minded individuals that want to grow internally and externally. And I'm really excited to meet more people like us. I actually just got back from Los Angeles, where we had a big convention for my business, for the VA group. It was very successful, but more importantly, we got to shake hands with all of the vendors who have invested in themselves, right? And got a booth, which was $6,000 just for the booth at the convention, not including all the swag and everything that you have to get into it. But you're dealing with business owners who are, wanting to make more of themselves. So we had a little mixer after the event, and wow, I mean, when you're in a room with people that are successful and not just hustlers, like we're talking about business owners that have already made it and they don't need more business. They just need to show face and be at these conventions, and that's pretty much their end goal there. It's a different aura, and it's not probably what a lot of people think as far as hustlers and sharks. These are educated, smart, sophisticated people that want the best for their employees, that want the best for their customers, that strive to be the 1% themselves because they don't want competition. And it was amazing to see that, because that's exactly what I try to do for the VA group. When customers, say, what's the difference between, you and another agency, or you and hiring a virtual assistant myself? And I go through the differences, and I go through what we have to offer, and I go through our hundreds of testimonials and our reviews. And it's like, wow, you guys are quality. You guys are the 1% of the company. So it was so nice to go to a mixer and seeing a whole bunch of 1%ers, in my mind, of successful people. And that's exactly what we want, is to create in this mastermind, is to have these get-togethers, to have these meetings, because your lives just get so impacted. No joking, I think I got 67 business cards. That's the exact number, 67 business cards. So, I mean, I think we got a couple more people that are going to be tagging along here in this community. So anyways, just wanted to share that information as well. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a fair point too. There are different levels in business, right? You have, like, I could talk about a few years back. I mean, I have to remind myself, actually, because it is very funny. I've been in mental health for 13 years, but I've been in business for 5, like as an entrepreneur, and not even all 5 of those were full-time. Only about 3 of those were full-time, funny enough. And so I, at times, feel I should be way further than I am because I have all this experience. But at the same token, it's like, but I've barely been doing this for I have 5 years, because 2 of them were part-time, but realistically, I'm under 5 years full-time. So I have to remind myself of that so that I could actually humble myself at times, because I get hard on myself and I think I should be much further, because there are certain things that I'm like, I shouldn't be struggling with this anymore. And it's like, but you've only been doing this a few years, so relax. But even in those few years, right, I've been able to build a coaching company up to multiple 6 figures through word of mouth, referrals, networking, connections. Like, there's something to be said about that. I mean, your average coach doesn't even make more than 30 to 45,000 per year in their lifetime. So I'm doing something.
That boulder, right, that you were talking about in the beginning, that even though it takes 467 days, which I think that was the number around there, that you're chipping away at this boulder. I mean, I can see it in you. You're hungry, right? You want to, you think you should be here all the way, but it's the process, right? It's the process, it's the journey to, that makes you who you are today, why you're such a great person. And, I think that the quality, the quantity will come along the way. As long as people are chipping away at that boulder and they're continuing to see the light at the end of the tunnel, that's what it takes, right? I mean, that's really all it takes.
Right. And then you get to these different stages in life where you're more just out because you want to be. Like I believe I'm still somewhat at the stage where I go out because I do have a bit of an obligation. Like if I'm not there, I could miss a connection or I could miss a thing that might, potentially change the trajectory of my business or my life. And so I push myself to go out. The biggest truth about me is I don't like going out. Like I don't want to be anywhere. Like if you want me to come out, do a speech, speak to a crowd, speak in front of 1,000 people, I don't care. I'll do that. I just want to go home after, right? But there is that push or that feel that I have to be out. And a few years back, I got invited to this conference by my branding guy who's, become a good friend of mine. And it was funny because he put me in the room with all these badasses. Like he put me in the room. He's like, hey, listen, I'm doing a little, speaker only dinner. He's like, but I want to invite you as my personal guest. You're my friend, you're my client. He's like, come through. So I said, okay. So I go all the way out to Colorado, right? And this is what I'll do is I'm a little bit impulsive, much like you. That's why we have fun together. And I mean, it was less than a week notice. He's like, hey, by the way, I'm throwing this event, come through. You'll be my guest and you'll come to this stuff. And I'm like, sure. So I just started moving everything in my schedule and clearing things out and, just got the flight last minute and the hotel and everything. And I went out and we did this really cool dinner, right? And I go to this dinner and it is exactly as it says, just the speakers for the event. But these speakers are amazing. One of them managed over $500 million in ad spend. Another one of them runs a $100 million company that's global, featured in the Inc. top 5,000 fastest growing companies. Another one of them is the former mental performance coach for the New York Yankees, who now does corporate coaching for probably over 7 figures. Another one of them is a keynote speaker that charges over 6 figures per speech. And I'm just sitting in this room with these people. And the first question is like, well, one, what the hell am I doing here? And the second thing that I started learning is that they were all just there because they just wanted to hang out with other really good people and they don't really need anything from anybody. So much so that this is the funniest thing. So much so that even after the event, right? They were all going to go out and, they were talking about dinner plans. So there's this big group chat going on. Again, I'm included in it, right? So I felt cool. It's like, yeah, with all these amazing people. And one of the guys in there goes, hey, everyone, it was great meeting all of you at the event. I would love to come out with you guys. However, I have a farm. My ducks just had babies. They had a bunch of little baby chicks running around, and I got a new puppy, and like I'm just gonna go home and be with my family. And I was like, now that right there, that is one hell of a worthy goal. To need so little from anybody else that you could just be like, I don't want to go out because I got a new puppy and I'm going home, and I don't need anything from any of you, so I don't need to be there. And I was like, that's how I want to live. Like, in that day, I formed a new goal that I didn't know I had. That's how I want to live my life. I want to just be able to just be like, I don't need to be here. I don't care about being here. I'm doing great in my life. I'm going home.
I think there's multiple levels to that. But first, I mean, you definitely have a gift for public speaking. I mean, I always been told I'm not a great public speaker. I'm good at like little group settings and things like that. But I was told to envision, the audience naked. But, I've done that and I feel like everybody just has better bodies than me. They're just like all 6-packs and like they're all oiled up for some reason. So
okay.
Yeah, I don't know why it is. It's like they're ready for like bodybuilding competitions and it's like, oh, great. Now I feel even more insecure. So I think what I'm going to start doing next time is envisioning everybody's in just parkas, and then we'll see how that goes. So I think there's multiple levels to that. And, and I could just because I went to that event, it wasn't like, how can I better my business and better, essentially the business, but it was bettering myself with people. So I think, having the mindset, like none of these people can benefit my company. It's narrow-minded, but if you have a really great, successful business and you want to go back to your family and enjoy it, I totally understand. However, if I'm traveling to Colorado, there's no way I'm going back to the hotel or anything like that. I'm going to go shake hands and meet as many people as I can, because I think that I can help them, whether it's in my business or, advice, or me personally. That's what I'm really trying to do, is get out of my comfort zone and meet new people that have these different mindsets. Because I'm telling you, at this, even where I'm at currently, I mean, I have over 400 virtual assistants and around the same thing with clients. I'm at the place where I don't think anybody can really grow my business to where I haven't done it already. I feel like I'm on a successful path. And boy, was I wrong. I mean, there was at least four people that I was like mind blown. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need this. I couldn't believe it. So I see where that mindset could be as far as comfortability and family, but I also see the other side of the spectrum.
Well, I do believe that there's always something you could be doing, something you could be learning, and especially from other people. I see it as, at least when I was looking at the way that now he's my mentor, but at least the way that he was doing it is more of just along the lines that he knows what really matters. And he has the comfort that he doesn't have to put anything before it ever again if he doesn't want to. And that's what it really said to me. He wanted to be home with his family. That's all he really cared about. And that's not a bad thing, because he is still growing. He is still continuing to get out there and make business deals. And, he was just traveling for opening up a factory somewhere in Germany now. Like, he's still moving. He's still making moves. It's just that aspect that you're finally on such a great trajectory in your life that things are so well, like they're just moving well, like a well-oiled machine, that you could also just spend time on the thing you're doing and your family. And I think that that's a really beautiful place to be. More so, at least for me, because I haven't been there yet. And so who knows, maybe when I get there, I'm like, this is boring. But
I think that's what you were, saying, and what we were talking about earlier is like these priorities and values, shifting constantly.
Yep.
And when a business is at a certain level and your family becomes, more important, or, I'm not going to say that because family is always more important. But as far as, spending that evening with your family and the new puppy and the ducks comparatively to networking, then I do agree that you've quote unquote made it,
Yeah.
And mine was just more of like a blanket statement that if I'm traveling and it's not in my hometown, I'm networking. Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I get that.
But if it's in my hometown and it's getting late and I'm under the same circumstances, who knows? I may go back and feed that duck milk. You feed your baby duck
crumbs.
Little breadcrumbs.
Little granola.
Yeah, I don't feed it like a bird, right? I don't have to chew it up and open my mouth.
No. I think the beaks have enough chomping power.
Okay.
And also, I don't think you want to get close to ducks. They hiss at you.
They're hissers like cats?
Yeah. Oh yeah, ducks hiss.
I guess I didn't grow up on a farm and not
or is that geese?
Familiar with.
I might be wrong. I know geese hiss.
I've had a couple interactions with geese, mainly on the golf course, and if they mistake that ball for their egg or they don't want you on their territory, they'll come after you. Talk about no fear.
That's it. You got to be ruthless like a goose.
Are you gonna trademark that? You got to be as ruthless as a goose out there, guys.
So join the Ruthless Goose program, where it's just a whole bunch of like scrappy entrepreneurs trying to make it.
Oh man, I can already see the swag right now, like the goose, hats and the shirts, and it's just like angry goose just out there.
it's a goose with its bill open and like drawn in eyebrows at an angle that makes it look angry.
Have you seen Ted? Have you seen the movie Ted?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like when the duck over there was an animation duck and it was charging at Ted and it had those eyebrows on there and Ted's like, oh no, it's coming. That's what just reminded me of right there.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh boy. Geese. Yeah. You don't want to mess with geese. Well, I mean, you could, but you don't want to. Not a good thing. It's not something that's recommended. But I do love the aspects of, at least pertinent to this conversation, right? That there is always something you can learn. And I think that one percenters do strive to do that. Even if it's not with networking or being around other people, it might just be getting a book or finding a new hobby or learning new ways to just be present or peaceful with themselves. Like there's always something you can do. And it always baffles me when people say, oh, I have nothing to work on, or I have nothing to do. And it's like, well, that right there tells me you have something to work on. Like that right there is the reason you should hire me. If you believe you have nothing to do, that's already a problem. So I think it's always interesting because I've even gotten clients where they're like, Vin, I'm good. And it's like, you're good with me? Like I've already taught you everything you need to know. Because I could accept that. But they're like, no, like I'm just good in life. I don't have anything else that I really need to learn. And I'm like, oh boy, I must have failed you as a coach if you believe that. And it's very interesting because I think that some people just get complacent, right? Like they think, well, I just need to learn these two things. And if I figure these two things out, then I'm good. And it's like, well, you might be good for the situation you've been in, but what about, the next step in your life or the trajectory? I always have something to work on. I have a mentor, I have a coach, and there's not one time I get on the phone with either of them and I'm like, I have nothing to talk about. Meanwhile, I've gone on the phone with clients and like, I have nothing to talk about. And so when I call them out, I'm like, I don't understand that. How do you have nothing to talk about? I have two different people to talk to, to one mentor and one coach. And there is not a time I get on that call and I'm like, I have nothing to talk about. And even if I have nothing to talk about, like nothing that's been bad in my life or whatever, I have questions. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Or hey, I have this idea. Or hey, could you give me your perspective on this? Or hey, I wanna try this thing. Or have you ever tried this? Like, what's your thought on? Even if I don't have problems, I'm still curious about what are some things that I could do to just grow as a person or help my business or whatever. So I think if somebody has that mindset, there's nothing left to learn and there's nothing left to do, like they're definitely not a 1%.
So I'll agree with that to an extent, and I think complacency and comfortability comes with success. It kind of goes with that, the networking there as well, right? I don't need to meet anybody. I don't need to talk to you. Things are good. I know my course. I know my path.
Sure.
So I think complacency and comfortability does take over. Now, that mindset is, can I always grow? Can I always be better as, a business owner, as a person, as a father, as a husband? Absolutely. I think not trying to better yourself in general as a whole, I would never agree with, because we're constantly evolving. Everything's evolving. But I think there is things in life that are more important than others. So I think, and that's why I feel like I have to disagree sometimes. Like when I talk to my coach, my business coach, it's the same thing. I struggle with things to talk about outside of referrals, and the last thing that I want to do is try to come up with something just for the case of talking for 15 minutes. Now, I also have a therapist as well, I'm constantly trying to improve myself, my self-worth, my relationship with myself. And that is an endless uphill battle, hopefully not endless, but it's always an uphill battle because, I'm trying to be a better person. I'm trying to have better communications and better communication with my loved ones and my friends and my colleagues. And I think it's just focusing priorities on what really matters, are the questions that I'm reserving.
Sure. Well, I would say a few things on that. Is like one, for instance, with your business coach, two things come to mind. Is one, perhaps the work that you do with him or the thing you need from him most is the referrals or the opportunities that you're seeking. And that's one way to utilize a business coach. Number two is that maybe there's just nothing for him to teach you. Maybe you need a different business coach because of that. Or maybe you could have both because he's got opportunities and referrals you want. And yet you still need a business coach that could potentially help you do something. Because the reality is, if you don't have $100 million company, and you do, right? Or I'm not saying you do, right? But, or if you do.
Not yet.
And not yet, you're getting there. But if you don't have a $100 million company, then you need somebody who's grown a company into $100 million. Now, if you're on the trajectory and you're poised to get to 100 million in a year or 2 years, great. Now you need somebody who's built a company of 500 million to advise you, and then continuing to grow from there.
I like
so
that.
There's always another level. It's just, do we have the capability maybe to even work with somebody at that level? Like, I don't have a therapist because the bigger reality is I haven't found anyone that's capable of challenging me yet. And the people that I think could challenge me are a little bit out of my range right now, which is fair, and that's fine. So I'm in a little bit of a middle ground where I have a mentor because I've come to, as I explain what I do to people, I've come to categorize in a few things, right? Like the difference between a therapist, a mentor, and a coach. And so a therapist is somebody who's going to help you kind of create awareness around your past and create some high levels of consciousness in certain aspects of your life. Could even be present life, right? That's what a therapist is supposed to do. Shine a light on a thing that might be in the shadow for you, that you might be missing. The point of a mentor, I believe, is to give you life advice. I truly believe that mentors can give you book smarts or book advice, but their biggest pull is that they have the capability to be very open and honest with you, and they'll share aspects and stories of lessons they've learned, like practical things that are tangible because they've just done it and they've learned about it. And that's when somebody steps into a mentoring role. And then I find that a coach is somebody who's going to be there to really challenge you to up your standards or up your capacity or teach you something for forward trajectory, right? Like business growth or some even personal development coaching, right? So I have a coach because I want to elevate some standards in my business. And there's also occasionally I'll talk to him about something that I thought about, but it's mostly related to business. And then I have a mentor because I like when he comes in and he'll give me some story or an experience that he's had, and that will shift my perspective on something because he has like a very immersive experience in it. And the reason I've left out my therapist is because I still can't really find one yet, and that's okay too. So I think even with that being said, there's always at least one person out there for somebody. It's just about, do they have the information you need? I could even say there are probably clients out there that have zero use for me as a coach. They would probably find working with me to be their worst investment. They would get nothing out of it. And that's fine, because they might need somebody that's at a higher level than me. Or maybe I'm so advanced, they need somebody that's at a lower level so they could grow to get to the point that they could actually utilize my service, which is another scenario. So it's about really, if you're feeling stuck or you're feeling like you don't have a good coach or a good mentor or a good therapist or you're not growing in those areas, but you're showing up, it really just means you don't have the person that you need to get you to where you're trying to go. And that's where the search continues.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, it's outgrowing, at least that's it in my position. It's outgrowing. So maybe I don't have the right mentors in place, and maybe I'm not thinking as big because I don't want to have that complacency mindset specifically with, a business coach. I want to get to that next level. And I know there are way more successful people than I am. And finding those types of people who have already, created the wheel, quote unquote, that's what I want. Show me the way. What did you do? And I'll pay what it takes so I can get to that next level. And I think that message still applies with therapists and life coaches in general.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's always another level. If you feel like you're not getting value, and I even tell this to my clients, if you feel like you're not getting value out of what you're doing, don't do it anymore. If you feel we're at a place in our relationship where I no longer have the ability to impact you, or you feel like we're in a place where you don't feel like sharing certain things with me because maybe you just feel like I won't get it because it's too far above me or whatever. I mean, I would encourage that, right? Like, have a conversation if you feel like they may not get it, because you never know. Maybe you're making assumptions, but you have to evaluate your relationships with these people and where are you at with them? Like, if you keep going to your therapist and you don't feel you get anything out of it, stop going to your therapist. Like I see that as pointless. Meanwhile, I know people who will go to therapy for 10 to 15 years, even though they get nothing out of it. And I can't comprehend it. It's like, what's the point?
Comfortability.
Exactly.
And it's honestly somebody just talk to and vent. I see the reasons why. It's even if they're not growing, they feel that if I can vent to somebody and they're going to listen because I'm not getting it in my life, which is not healthy, that's why they're paying me. But circling around here, I know we've gotten to an hour already. I think there was a lot of good things here today. As far as overcoming and actually acknowledging your fear and learning how to live with it and understanding it, not just overcoming fear. It's because fear's in your daily values, and having the boulder and chipping away at it, but seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and seeing the opportunities of where you can be internally and spiritually and physically and mentally and financially and successfully. That's what the 1%ers is all about.
Yeah. If you want to be a 1%er, you just have to do things that everybody doesn't. And you'll know what it is because very few people do it, right? Like we know that. That's why it's called the 1%, because you can't get here by doing the same thing that everybody else does. I don't know about a lot of people. Today's a Saturday, and immediately my thought was like, I'm going to get up late. Even last night, I was like, I'm going to stay up late. I'm going to relax. I'm going to enjoy myself. I wanted to watch some TV with my girl and all this good stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I got stuff I want to do. I got things I'm trying to accomplish here. So today I set my alarm for 5 a.m. I woke up, got out, moving around 5:30, got a task done by about 6:37, listened to a few motivational videos, got into the gym. By the time it's about 9:30, 10 o'clock, I pretty much already crushed my day on a Saturday, where I made that post at about 5. I made the post this morning on my Instagram about 5:40 a.m. And I even put it in there. I was like, some people are still up right now from the night before. I'm waking up right now to tackle my day and get shit done. You're going to be sleeping the rest of it. And that's a reality. Is if you want to, this is one of my favorite sayings. I think it's from Jim. Is it from Jim Rohn? No, I heard it from Les Brown. And he says, if you want to have what others don't, you have to do what others won't. And he might have parroted it from somebody. Don't give him credit, whatever. Go look it up on Google. But I've heard that saying when I was about 23 or 22 years old. So I've always kind of been in personal development as I was trying to figure out my own crap. And so I'd listen to these compilations of people speaking and giving me pieces of wisdom. And that continues to ring true in my head, especially when I want to sit around and sometimes take it easy. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling people to burn out and just go. I don't believe in that either. But I do acknowledge that there are times where you do have to push through, that there are times where you should not take that break. Take a break later or do something that you can make sense of. For me, at least, this Saturday, this weekend, because I was sick for a week before and I super backed up on work, I couldn't make sense of staying up late and watching TV and not dedicating my morning today to improving myself and doing some things that I felt I need to do.
So you had that fear, you saw that, you're like, I can stay up late and I can just lounge around and, just do what a normal Saturday, what a lot of people consider a normal Saturday is for, or you can do what other people don't do. And that's that mindset. You're trying to better yourself. You're trying to better your business. You're trying to, just be the best that you can be. You're trying to be that 1%er. And, it's speaking through that. And I live that mindset most of the time. And I feel that you're right. All the time, I'd burn out, especially with a 2-year-old and a 6-month pregnant wife. Yep. But I got to do what I got to do to get to where I need to be. And it's having that exact mentality. It's, when you started the business, it's making those 200 cold calls that nobody likes doing. But guess what? 4 years later, now I'm here where I'm at. And all of my work that I do is delegated.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about here, guys, is the 1%. Do what other people's don't. and you'll become that person.
Excellent. Exactly. So if you guys want to get in touch with us any way, shape, or form, you can find my Instagram. It's at vin.infante. You could also go to my TikTok, though I just post the same things. You can check me out on LinkedIn. It's at Vin Infante. Go to the website, www.vincentinfante.life. And you could shoot an email if you have any questions about anything like joining the 1% community, or if you just have questions about anything even said on this podcast, you could email me at vincent@vincentinfante.life. That's my email. Shane, what about you?
So right now we are building up the social channels, and we're building up the websites and the domain emails. So that would be the best way to reach out to either of us, is just through Vin at this point in time. When everything is up and running, we'll update those channels accordingly. But we look forward to week 3 podcast. This is it's great stuff. Vin, I always love talking with you. I feel like I've become a better person, spiritually, mind, body, and soul. So it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Same here, man. Great doing it with you.
All right, guys, till next time.
See ya.